So I am a Chief Warrant Officer for Nathan Heim for the Minnesota Army National Guard.
You still in?
I'm still in,
Okay.
and I'm currently on my 24th year, and I will be retiring at my 25th year.
Good.
So,
Let me just say we're at Ballard Resort. We're on all expense paid veterans fishing trip.
yes.
So yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Okay. I guess I'll just kind of talk about the things that come to my mind. It started as I went 2 years in college. I wanted to serve my country like my grandfather, like my father, but I was involved in athletics, and I didn't know when a good time to do that was. I guess the breaking of the ice was when I found a little '93 Toyota pickup that I wanted to buy. And my dad said, well, how are you going to pay for it? I said, well, I'll join the Guard.
And how old were you then?
I was 20 years old then. Not only did I want to, or maybe I was 19, but I was going to be 20. And not only was it an extra reason to push me over to serve my country, but also the college benefits to help pay for college, and then also have a truck. So I signed up for the National Guard. I did the delay entry program. So I actually signed up on June 29th of 2000.
Did you go in with anybody, or?
I did not go in with anybody, but the funny thing is I had a neighbor friend who was a year younger than me. He signed up after me but went to basic training before me because I did the delay entry program, where as long as you enlist in the Minnesota Army National Guard, you can claim your college education benefits. And you can utilize those until you go, obviously go to basic and so forth. So the following year I went to basic training. My 21st birthday was spent in basic training. It was probably saved my life. You never know. But that was at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, home of the engineers, which I would end up doing a lot of time there with my military schooling. I came in as a 12 kilo. Or 51 kilo they would call it, but it's a plumber, pipe fitter.
Really?
And the reason I chose that was it was a $20,000 bonus. I told the recruiter, you got me, I will sign up, I want the most money for what I'm going to do. But as far as bonuses, and they have kicker bonuses for college, and so I had the intentions of I want this to benefit me as much as possible. And I also went in as a rank of E2, so I felt pretty privileged.
Because you had the college education?
Because I had a little bit of college education.
Okay.
Now carpenters, which would have been my first choice, would have got $15,000. But they said you could be a plumber and you can get a $20,000 bonus. So I chose that, which was very unique. I learned a trade that I could use in the civilian sector when I get out. And honestly, we did more carpentry work as engineers than we did plumbing. So in the end, I did a lot of the same work as all the carpenters anyway. I guess, it was pretty traditional. The first couple of years, my first annual training was up in the Red Lake Indian Reservation, which I'm from Kelliher, Minnesota, so that's about 10 minutes away, the Red Lake Indian Reservation. So it was kind of funny, prior to going in, they've done ATs at the Philippines, Guatemala, Korea, Costa Rica. And my first annual training is at the Red Lake Indian Reservation. So I really had to kind of laugh because they were telling me all the great places that they got to go. And here I end up 10 minutes, 15 minutes from home on the Indian Reservation.
You're just a lucky guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I thought, well, here we go. It's going to start. And, after that, it was pretty traditional drills. I ended up going to Bemidji State University. I was captain of the baseball team my senior year at college. On a Monday night, I was ice fishing, and I got a phone call that said, you have been ordered to active duty. And I was confused because that was about all they said. And I said, well, does that mean I should, do you know how long we're going to be gone for? And she said, no. And I said, should I drop out of college? And she said, yes.
Really?
And at that point, I knew the world's changing. This is January. This is the middle of January 2003. So this is pre.
So how many years do you have in college?
At this point, this was my senior year of college. I was captain of the baseball team. I was up for academic All-American. It was just bad timing. But long story short, I packed up my things. I went and dropped out all my classes and told my coach that, you know, I've been ordered active duty and I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how long. See you later. That Tuesday night, we had a little party, and Wednesday morning I reported to Camp Ripley, Minnesota, where we loaded up on a C-130 and we headed directly to Fort Carson, Colorado. We were the first Minnesota unit activated for Operation Iraqi Freedom at that time. Governor Tim Pawlenty, we had a small send-off, and he sent us off, and it was maybe 150 soldiers, Charlie Company, the 142nd Engineers. So we ended up in Fort Carson, Colorado, and
Which isn't a bad place to be.
which isn't a bad place to be. And you know, we spent about a month of our pre-mob training there, and everything was really real. And we were, the one thing about the military I've always realized is you're not the only one. You can't say, well, this sucks just for me, because if it sucks just for you, you made some poor choices. But as far as the suck is together. And the bonds that you make through the military are lifelong bonds. I have some very close friends that are like brothers to me. I never had a brother, but I have some that are probably closer than most brothers are close to each other, for what we've endured together. But we spent about a month there at Fort Carson, Colorado, and did our train up, and then mobilized and deployed over to Kuwait. And then from there, we were at Camp New York, which was just a tent in the middle of the desert. There's Camp New Jersey and Camp, a couple of other ones I don't remember.
Is this before everything really gets going over
This is, we ended up going into Iraq in March, mid-March of 2003, so during the invasion. We were not the first boots on the ground as far as the 3rd and 4th Infantry Division, but we were right behind them. When we were going up the road from Kuwait into Iraq, there was tanks blowing up that were still smoking. There was
I still remember seeing it was just carcasses,
the road of death, yeah.
all over, yeah.
They call it the road of death, and that was the way people were burned up inside of the tanks. It was very eerie, and it was very quiet at that time because it just happened. So we're going through with not a lot of intelligence other than we need to get to LSA Anaconda, which is Balad, Iraq, which is north of Baghdad, about 45 miles. And it took us, the first time, it took us 3 days to get there by convoy because we had over 70 vehicles in our packs and our chocks. And at that time, I volunteered for Quick Reactionary Force, which would be a security detachment for the convoys, which sounded great, being that I'm 20-some years old and sounds exciting. I found out that later on that it was more excitement than I probably wanted to sign up for. But I was very honored to do that for our company too, you know.
A little more.
Yep.
There, almost had it.
Get him?
There you go.
Oh, there he is. So it was a unique opportunity. Not only being a plumber, but you were a number. You were a part of a team. It wasn't about what you did as a MOS. It was about coming together and filling gaps. So we spent a lot of time up there running missions, log pack missions, rebuilding LSA Anaconda as some of the first engineers there, getting the water running again, building floors, tents, structures to build up this area. So I spent a lot of time on convoy security outside the wire, running log packs back to Kuwait, mail calls to Tikrit, down to Biop.
So did you guys come under fire quite a bit, or?
We took. There was times when we took fire, indirect fire. Most of our contact was like mortars rounds. We did endure some roadside IEDs. Nothing that was catastrophic for our initial company, but for our battalion, we did lose 3 soldiers.
But this was before the Humvees were really equipped to take.
You're right.
Take them hits.
Yes, you're right, and that was very. I don't know what the word is. It was what it was. We had canvas back Humvees. Our windows were plastic. and we were in a wartime situation. That why do we have canvas doors? So we'd take our canvas doors off, and we ended up making our own 50 cal mounts because we had no mounts. We ended up having our mechanics weld foot pegs, or kind of a stepping spot onto our Humvees, so we could turn and look outside of our doorway, and return fire if we had to with a rope around the doorway. Because what good does it do you sitting behind a canvas?
I remember the parents made such a big stink about how ill-equipped you guys were.
It was. Well, we had flak jackets that were old, probably Vietnam flak jackets. It didn't have any plates in them.
Kevlar.
We had no. Well, we had Kevlar, but we had no plates. So they had the webbing, the Kevlar webbing, but there was no plates protecting from bullets. It was a shrapnel vest. To try to protect ourselves, we'd take sandbags and put them on the front end of the windshield and on the floorboards in case we did take an IED from the underside. But then we realized, one, this is slowing our vehicle down by a lot, and number two, that will probably create that sand. If it gets blown up, it will turn that into probably shrapnel or projectiles and be impelled into your body, So we ended up removing those, and then it was what it was. Obviously some of those IEDs, you just don't have a choice, and what's going to happen anyway. So fortunately, I'm here to speak about it, but not everybody was able to do that. So by the grace of God, there was times when we would go through sections of daisy chained 80 millimeter mortar rounds that were daisy chained together across the highway. And there was one time we went through and we heard this loud snapping sound, and we were the second vehicle in a 50 vehicle convoy, and they like to hit the front vehicle to stop the convoy, and then they attack from the rear. And we heard a loud snapping sound, so when we went by, like firecrackers, and we called it in. We moved up about 1,000 meters, and then we called EOD in, and it took over 3 hours for EOD to come. And here we're sitting out in the middle of the red zone.
To clear it away.
To get cleared away, and it ended up being, they said, you're so lucky because that sound you heard was det cord, and that went to that first 80 millimeter round, and that round was a dud.
That's a big round.
Big round. And they were daisy chained across that highway. I would have been like a tin can with a 12 gauge. So
you've been lucky.
Very lucky. And at that point, I realized that it's in God's hands. My body was content with it because I just...
How long you been there at this time?
At this time, I was probably in country for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, maybe halfway through a tour. And at that point, we just did our job, and you just pray to God, and hopefully you got the lucky card, because not everybody did. We've seen a lot of things over there, and it wasn't fortunate. So we did end up, at this time they told us, they didn't give us a timeline when we're coming home. We thought for sure they weren't going to keep us there more than 6 months, because then they would have to pay us as veterans. They give us veteran status. And we went beyond 180 days, so we thought, okay, we're going to be here a while. And then it went beyond 365 days. And our orders were up to 430 days, I think.
Really?
But we ended up spending 14 months, the initial deployment.
Because those first ones, there was quite a few that went extended.
And there was not a very good plan put together. And it was just a deployment like that is different for everybody. Whether you're in the green zone or the red zone, or you're carrying an M249 SAW or a pistol or no weapon, but everybody processes deployment or war or what they see differently. We're all wired differently, and we've lost people to suicide, and you don't know why. You don't know what they're dealing with, and you don't know if it's from that. But you do know that's a big thing, But it was in the end, it was an amazing experience, being able to see things, being able to talk to the locals. We spent a lot of time on the road, so we saw places that a lot of other soldiers didn't get to. We saw some bad things, and it gives you a bigger, broader perspective on life. So to be able to see that at 23 years old, it's really been a changing point in my life. Maybe they say from a boy to a man. You know, I matured a lot in that 1 year. So again, we were fortunate to, from our company, we came home with everybody. In our battalion, we lost 4 soldiers. And our battalion was the 142nd out of North Dakota. So it would have been the 142nd Engineer Battalion. We also deployed with the 957th Engineer Bridging Company out of North Dakota.
So is that where you met TJ then, or?
No, I didn't meet
You never
TJ
met
through. No, but
because he was with a bridging.
was he?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a small world. You never know.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of my deployments. You know, and that was early on. I ended up coming back home, finishing college, finishing baseball, and closing out that chapter. But as life progresses on, I've now initially was just going to do 6 years, and I'm here 24 years later as a CW4, the highest ranking engineer warrant officer.
What's a CW warrant officer, right?
The highest ranking engineer warrant officer in the state of Minnesota. So right now I'm the engineer branch chief for the engineer warrant officers in the state.
24 years.
24 years. And so, you know, you never know where the road of life's going to take you. Sometimes you jump on it, and sometimes you jump off it. I'm here. I'm thankful for my service to my country.
So after Iraq, did you deploy any time after that?
I did. I deployed again in 2017-18, and I went to Jordan. I was the officer in charge of all construction projects in the country of Jordan. So I worked very closely with the brigade and division, and I was facilitating our company and our battalion into employing our engineers in whether it's all aspects of construction, dirt work, the concrete work, the electrical work, plumbing, carpentry, and those type of missions, and employ them to pull them out of Kuwait to give them an experience of a deployment. And if you don't have somebody in the office kind of leading the charge to find these jobs for your soldiers, you will sit in Kuwait for a whole year and then go home without a combat badge, you know, because the Jordan was a combat zone at that time. So combat patches are a morale patch a lot of times. You know what you got them for, you know where you were, why you got them, and that's all it is, you know. But it's also a morale. It's a big morale boost at times. So we get soldiers in, and they would work and then be employed. So that was my second deployment. I did miss a couple other deployments because of warrant officer school, which I was fortunate, because in the civilian world I build log homes. So that would have took me out of that fight. So, you know, I always wanted to go back one more time and kind of close the chapter, close that book.
You know, I hear that a lot about you guys wanting to go back
Yeah.
to be with buddies.
Yeah. Well, I lost a real good friend over there, and his name was Staff Sergeant Dale Panshaw. He was from North Home, Minnesota, and he was with the 4th Infantry Division on Fort Carson, Colorado. And as I said earlier, I got deployed there. He was a high school classmate of mine, a couple years older than me, and he was active duty. And when I got deployed, his sister, who was in my class, called him and said, "Hey, Nate's coming over there." Well, long story short, we're sleeping in the maintenance bays because they have no room on Fort Carson for all this influx of reservists that are getting deployed. Well, Dale looked me up somehow, some way, found our unit patch, and he ended up finding me. He said, "Nate, what are you doing?" You know, "Hey, Dale, you know, what are you doing?" You know, so long story short, we hung out a little bit, and he was initially going to go through Turkey with the 4th ID and then come down from the north, and I didn't know where we were going. So long story short, we shook hands, said God bless, be safe, and here I was in LSA Anaconda, north of Baghdad, and I hear, "Heim, what are you doing?" And here it was Dale again. Dale was up in the Tikrit area, but ended up moving his light infantry Bradleys. They came down and were going to pull security around LSA Anaconda.
Bradley's one of the big.
Yep, the mechanized, kind of mobile tank, troop carrier tank, and And so we'd hang out, and I couldn't believe it. He found me again, saw the unit patch, and found me, and we hung out. And he always hung out over with us because we had females in our unit.
Oh, really?
You see, he was infantry, so he didn't see a lot of that.
Single.
Yeah, so he, for various reasons, he was always over hanging around in our hooch area, you know. And one morning, there was an attack outside the wire. We got hit with mortars for 60 days in a row. That night, when the lights went out, mortars started getting lobbed in, and they called it Mortarville. LSA Anaconda was nicknamed Mortarville because they shoot mortars in just pop shots. Well, here one morning, they started dropping in mortars, and Dale was on the QRF call. And
QRF being?
Well, Quick Reactionary Force.
Okay.
And earlier that week, he told his commander, "Sir," and Dale was like, if you wanted a kid who played Army as a kid, you know, Army was written all over him. And he told his commander, he said, "Sir, I just want to be a dismount." And Dale's a staff sergeant, so he's a tank commander. Sits up in the hatch. Says, "Sir, I want to kick doors in. I want the excitement. I want the adrenaline rush." And now his commander says, "Dale, you're a staff sergeant. You're a tank commander. You need to stay with the Bradleys. When your dismounts, go out there and kick the doors in and do their stuff." He goes, "But sir, I've done that for this first half of my deployment. I'm ready to go kick some doors." And he goes, "All right, Jesus. Then find someone to take over the tank commander position and you can be a dismount." So that morning, Dale's a dismount. And they go out, the mortars start coming in, and they go out in the Bradleys, and they start dropping mortars in on the Bradleys to stop them. And so when the Bradleys are looking for the Iraqis that are dug in with these mortars, the Iraqis were also dug in with armor-piercing RPGs. And they hit the Bradley with armor-piercing RPG. And on the dismount, there's 2 benches, and there was 3 dismounts on this side, and then Dale, one other guy on this side. And the RPG round went between 2 guys' shoulders and hit Dale right above the heart and killed him instantly. The guy next to him said all he heard was, and put his hand over here, and he just about put his whole hand in his chest. You know, and like that, you know, it was very devastating because I heard about it, and I said, I went to the TMC, the medic tent, and I said, "Hey, I heard there were some injuries, what's going on?" And they asked, "Who do you know?" And I said, "Staff Sergeant Dale Panja." And they said,
Take your time.
and they said, "Come with me." And they said Dale was KIA, and it was tough. It was tough, and I wanted to escort him back home, but he was already on a bird.
You didn't get to escort
I didn't
him?
get to escort him, no, because he was already on the bird by the time I, you know, word traveled. So, but long story short, it was made things a lot more real. You know, that's the collateral damage of war. Nobody wants to see it, but nobody knows who it's going to be either. You know, and it's been 20 years now since Dale was killed. You know.
Still touches home, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Because he doesn't get to enjoy these things. He doesn't get to come to balance. You know.
Yeah.
He didn't get to come home and tell his dad about his stories. You know.
You got good memories of him, though.
Yeah, I do. But he was where he wanted to be, you know, and that's
what he wanted to do.
That's where he wanted to be, dismount, and then they get hit, you know. And I just think of so many different things. I think of, what if the tank was like this and it got hit? It would have never hit Dale in the heart. It would have never hit him. Yep. What if Dale was in the tank hatch where he was supposed to be? Yep. So that was a tough moment of the deployment, but you know, I know how hard Dale is, and you know, toughen up, and you know, he would do that for us 100 times over. That's the way he was, you know. And in a weird way, it was almost like it's what he wanted. So to be honored, you know, I mean, to be a hero, you know, and
yeah.
Really, he was that type of guy, like, take me, you know, and it was pretty wild.
So a question I usually ask you guys is, what'd your parents think of you?
They were proud. You know, my my mom thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, and that I was joining the Guard to help pay for college. Then I get deployed there to go to war.
And I know this is something I wrote up, what mothers go through, veterans go through, and we don't realize what we're putting them through.
Yeah, I know. And I know, I mean, it was my mom and dad, you know. I saw some emotions from them that I've never seen in my life, you know. And, yeah, it was really hard on them, I know. And people tell me, they say that was pretty hard on them. Especially early on when there were so many KIAs, you know, there's a lot of casualties. And they didn't know, you know, and nobody knew.
All they saw is what they saw on the news.
And it's got to be what could have been my kid. It could have been him,
Yep.
you know. And I, now that I'm a father and my son's going to join the National Guard, it kind of hits home, and it, you know, brings light. When you're 23 years old, you're piss and vinegar, you know. You don't give a shit. You're ready to kick ass and take names, you know, and then you don't realize how it affects on the back.
You got to go back to what you were like at that age.
I know. So it's kind of scary, actually. Because I don't know if I ever told my mom I volunteered to be the security force on a convoy, you know. She thought it was pretty safe to be a plumber, you know.
Yeah,
so.
you're supposed to be a plumber.
Yeah. So they're proud. As they probably relieved that it's all said and done soon enough, and I think they're you know, proud. But then it was funny when after 6 years, I re-enlisted, and she said, "Why would you do such a thing?" I said, "Well, Mom, you sure didn't act like this when I was enlisted." You know, I said, "I kind of like it. You know, it's a good thing for me." And I was fortunate because our unit did go back on deployment in 2007 and 8, and it was not a good deployment in Iraq either. So I was fortunate I didn't have to go, but in the same token, I was in the middle of warrant officer school. You know, and if it wasn't for that, who knows?
Yeah.
The rest, I could have been another Dale.
Right.
You know, so I'm thankful. I take a lot of things I've learned through the military as positives, you know, but I'm aware of the negatives, you know, lessons learned, you know. So I think it's really broadened me as an adult. And
So now are you a plumber or?
no, I'm not a plumber. I build log homes up in
Oh, that's
Kellyard,
right. You told me
Minnesota.
that, yeah.
I'm a horrible plumber. I'm a military trained plumber. I know enough to be dangerous, and that's about it. You know, it's good information to know in case something happens, but I'm not I'm just a military trained plumber. I'm a engineer warrant officer, which is a subject matter expert for all engineering fields in the Army system. So I have to know a lot, try to know a little about everything, you know, but a lot. Know where to reference it to and such. So
But you build prefab.
yeah,
log
I
houses.
build handcrafted log homes in Kellyard, Minnesota, and I've owned my own business for 20 years. My dad started that business, and I've continued to carry it on. So it's a great place. I have 160 acres out in the woods on a river, you know, and that's my freedom. That's what I fought for. That's why I do what I do for the country. So
That's good. That's a good statement.
Yeah, so you can go
What
somewhere.
I fought for.
Yeah, so you can go out there and you can just sit in peace and not have to worry about anything. And that's my therapy. Yeah, that's really my therapy. I go there to get close to myself again and just think. So.
Anything about your military career anything else you'd like to say about it? Maybe?
You know, there's not much. I think it's a great thing, and like anything, you can take an experience and make it a very good, positive, healthy thing, or you can, in your own way, not make it a healthy thing. So you have to have a very open mind and a positive outlook to make it a long-lasting image to be able to be proud of, or something.
And you do.
You
can tell just by your
Yeah.
attitude you do.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be aware of the shit and the junk, but that should be a teaching lesson for you. You know, yeah, it's the military shaped me big time, and I highly recommend it to any young person that wants to give back to their country and do their part. And
A lot of people are walking around lost, don't know what to do, need a little structure.
yep.
It's probably the place to go.
It is, absolutely. Absolutely. It gives you a job, it gives you stability, and it gives you opportunity to get your head straight and actually learn about something that maybe you would be interested in pursuing as a career. And you know what? You may just like to stay in 24 years too. So that happened to me.
Hey, Nathan, I want to thank you for your long service
Yeah.
and thank you for doing this interview.
Thank you very much.